Good evening, and I'd like to welcome you to our February meeting of the Morganton Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to welcome our commission members back this month. We're a volunteer organization, if you would, or a commission that provides advice on land use planning and zoning issues for the city of Morganton and its extra jurisdiction just outside the city boundaries. And later tonight we're going to recognize a fine group that's with us tonight. But to start our meeting, we'd like to continue with some old business, which was a review and approval of our January meeting minutes. Each member of the commission has hopefully received a copy and had a chance to review and read those. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections, comments? Seeing none, I'll move those are approved. Under another item of old business is to review our city council action since our last meeting in January.
Okay, at the February 4th City Council meeting, there were two items of Planning Commission business that were taken up. The first is a rezoning request by Foothills Fabricators, Harold Best, for 618 East Meeting Street. If you may recall, the request was from general business to light industrial, conditional use for the purpose of operating a small metal fabrication, welding type business, and other mixed uses at the property. Public hearing was held, all the proper advertising was given, and that rezoning was approved as submitted, so that property is now light industrial conditional use. It's my understanding that the purchase of that property is going through and it's moving forward. The other item was a similar type rezoning located at 806 Jamestown Road. This request was made by Maximum Metals, Mr. Keith Bowers, for 5.8 acres from residential high to general business. Again, public hearing was held. There was no opposition that spoke at that public hearing. That was a conditional use request, and so the conditions that were sent up by the Planning Commission and recommended were approved as recommended.
All right. Any questions, comments for Lee? All right. Next item of business is appearances. Here we normally take the time to allow anyone that's in the audience to speak or address a planning or zoning issue that's not on our agenda tonight. If there's anyone at this time that'd like to address the commission, now is your opportunity. All right, seeing no one jump forward, I do want to take this time to recognize a special group that's with us tonight, and I think it's Mr. Jason Summers. That's with Troop 899. That's with Denton's Chapel Church, and with him I think we've got some young outstanding scouts that are here working on one of their merit badges. Would you take an opportunity to come forward and tell us a little bit about your work and also introduce those fine young men?
I'll be glad to. Appreciate you letting us go in tonight for your meeting. I'm Jason Summers. This is Mitchell Summers, and this is introduce yourself. Carson Carswell. They're working on their citizenship and community merit badge, and as part of one of the recommendations they have to do for that is to go to a city planning meeting, council meeting, so forth, and basically to be able to see what goes on as far as a city planning meeting and how a formal meeting is being held. Other than that, they've got this is their first merit badge, and they've got 10 more to go before they can obtain all of the ones required for Eagle, and then a grand total of 21 merit badges that they have to do to get all the way to the final end stage of being Eagles. So they got a long way to go, and they're just now getting started. So we greatly appreciate you guys letting us join you tonight.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you with us here tonight, and we appreciate the work and effort that you put in to a fine accomplishment that these young men can take care of. So good luck in your work and your efforts. Also, during our meeting, if there's any questions that you have, please don't hesitate to stop and say, well, explain what you're doing. But again, we're happy to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
All right, let's move forward into our new business. Tonight on that is our item to consider a rezoning request of 1.96 acres of property which is located at 100 W.A. Harris Road. And the request is to change from light industrial to a general business zoning. This request is submitted by John Hamer. The staff evaluation, Lee, would you run us through that, please?
Okay, if you'll turn in your package to the evaluation case number 13-003, submitted by John Hamer. As noted, this property is located at 100 W.A. Harris Road, which is at the intersection of W.A. Harris Road and NC 181. The tract size is 1.96 acres. It's currently zoned light industrial, and the applicant requests a general business category. Currently under light industrial classification, which has been in place on this property since 1985. Light industrial district is permitted a variety of manufacturing, fabrication, assembly, warehousing, and other wholesale trades. Typically, large setbacks are imposed in the light industrial district because of the wide range of uses that are permitted in that zone. There are many uses in that district that can adversely affect the surrounding area due to noise, hours of operation, vehicular movements, including heavy truck traffic, intensive lighting, unsightly material storage, etc. Normally, these districts are found away from residential areas. The request is to change the zoning to general business. General business is a more commercial, service, and light warehousing type district. District also permits single-family and multifamily uses, which the current light industrial zoning classification would not allow. General business districts are also located typically along major roadway corridors where the adverse impacts are minimized to adjoining single-family residential uses. Chad, if you'll turn on the monitors. The map in front of you indicates in the blue outline the property in question at the corner of W.A. Harris and NC 181. The area in blue that's surrounding across from Emory Corporation is light industrial, so you can see the extent of the light industrial district in this area. It's surrounded by residential medium zoning, which is a multifamily zone, residential low along W.A. Harris, which borders in the rear, and a small section of general business, and then neighborhood business up a short distance of Stevens Road. So you can see there's quite a bit of different zoning categories in this area. The blue dash line indicates the current ETJ limits. So everything inside this boundary that is within a color is within the city's ETJ. This area beyond is within the county's jurisdiction and is under the county's zoning authority. Access to the property is either from NC 181 or W.A. Harris Road. NC 181 is a two-lane major thoroughfare that's maintained by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. It carries approximately 12,000 vehicles per day, and that is based on the latest 2011 counts that we have available. The current capacity of this roadway at its current design is 12,000 ATT, so it's right at its design capacity. This corridor continues to experience a steady increase in traffic over the past 10 or 15 years. Currently, there are no plans to alter the roadway by the Department of Transportation. There's no funding set aside in the Transportation Improvement Program. However, additional width is recommended as a high priority by the regional MPO, which is a consolidated group of Burke County, the cities within Burke County, and areas, cities and counties within a four-county area of this location. So there are recognition that this roadway does need to have some improvement as time goes forward. The current plan of the cities, our current thoroughfare plan indicates that this roadway will need to be widened at least by 2025 to accommodate the traffic demand that's traversing it. W.A. Harris is a two-lane residential street. It's also maintained by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. It is not designed to accommodate commercial or industrial traffic. It's a residential collector for some neighborhoods that lie just off of W.A. Harris Road, and really serves a low volume of traffic presently, but is not really made for industrial traffic. Utility services available to the property. There's a 12-inch city water line located along NC 181. This 12-inch water line is adequate to serve a light industrial or a general business use at this particular location. Sewer service is in close proximity to the property. However, it's not presently available across the road. It's a little, it would take a line extension to provide sewer service to the property. And the property, the way it falls off graphically, you can see on the map from the 181 side to the back of the property, it falls from front to back. So sewer access may be a challenge even if sewer was extended to the property, just because of grade changes. The sewer line is very shallow, and an extension of the line is going to be difficult to provide any kind of sewer access up that particular corridor. So without sewer, light industrial classification is going to be more difficult to accommodate under light industrial or general business categories of a typical use that would locate there. The Mission 2030 plan. The city adopted its Mission 2030 plan in 2009. It acknowledges that there's existing industrial use in the area. Emory Corporation has existed for quite some time, which is the primary reason why industrial zoning is shown there. But looking at the Mission 2030 plan, it seems to discourage any outward expansion of this zoning to include adjacent properties. You can see the way the land use plan is shown. It's kind of encouraging it to stay on the Emory side of the roadway, and on the opposite side of the roadway, they're showing residential categories. So it would be our interpretation of what was intended there to look at less intensive type zoning categories, which general business is a drop down from light industrial, and even perhaps a neighborhood business zone, and would offer a more stable long-term boundary of this particular area over the long term. Future rezonings. The area of development predates the city's zoning classifications. In other words, much of this development pre-existed the city's zoning coming out to the area. These provide some difficulty sometimes for the city to handle long term, because in today's planning, trying to separate those type of uses away from one another is encouraged. What often happens as the use no longer is active that was initially meant to go in the building, they're hard to repurpose, they're hard to find adaptive reuses for, and placing uses in these can create almost as big a problem in the area as having with a vacant building as having the use there itself. So they're a challenge for the city to deal with sometimes. A GB rezone of the property should not create additional rezoning requests in the area, but again, trying to bring it to a category that would be more consistent with what the overall Mission 2030 plan is trying to do would be encouraged. Spot zoning does not seem to be a problem, since the current zoning of the property is light industrial. This is actually improving the situation, and so spot zoning would not be considered a problem here. The impact of surrounding properties. This particular property has been used for multiple purposes over the years. Most of them have been pretty low impact operations. They generally have not had late hours of operation or intensive uses after hours that would be disruptive to the surrounding neighborhood. They haven't been large traffic generation type uses. They haven't required a substantial amount of outdoor storage or materials or things that you typically see in light industrial or general business type zoning areas. And they just haven't had any incompatible effects. We haven't received a lot of phone calls over the 25 years I've been here as a problem. A low-impact commercial activity that offers similar type uses should not adversely affect the livability in the area. However, this request is not, it's not a conditional use request. General business could allow a lot of different types of uses there. The staff would probably recommend that we consider a neighborhood business category, which is also a commercial type use that would allow for wholesale retail trade and some adaptive reuse of the building, but be a little more consistent with what the long-term goals would be. They've made a general business rezone request. It's not a conditional use request of any particular type, so anything allowed in general business would be allowed under general business. Neighborhood business holds some limits as far as hours of operation, the building size. I believe the building right now, there's about 2,500 square feet on the main level, 2,500 square feet below. Typically in neighborhood business, you don't see buildings much over 3,000 square feet. They're usually closer to the road like this one is. They, again, have standard hours of operation. They can't operate past 10 o'clock in the evening or before 6 o'clock in the morning. There are reasonable use restrictions. They're usually ideally suited for neighborhoods. They still again permit a wide variety of businesses, retail, and office type uses, so there could be a lot of different types of uses that could go in the property. It has limited parking availability in the front and side of this property, so neighborhood business is low traffic generation type businesses, so that also seems to work really well for this property, and I think it accommodates what the current folks that are wanting to use it for. It would accommodate for that type of use, and it balances the adjacent properties with the Mission 2030 plan and the use of the building. So we would recommend a neighborhood business if you saw fit to move it forward.
Okay. Thank you, Lee. Any questions, comments for Lee from the commission?
Is the business that has a marquee out front currently operating the property? It has a sign on it that says open soon.
Not presently. Not presently.
How about a business use history? Do you have a feel for
The property was zoned for industrial use back when I think Emery or Toner, they were doing some machining work there, and I think that's how it got changed to a light industrial category. I've spoke with the owners. The owners weren't even aware that it was light industrial. And speaking with them, they remember that it's been kind of a small retailing operations in the past prior to '85, and since that time it was a car. They did specialty items for vehicles, kind of tricked out vehicles and made specialty parts for those which fit within light industrial. It hasn't really been a retailing type operation, and there's some requests to do some retailing out of there, and so they need, light industrial doesn't accommodate for that, so they need a different category to do retail to customers for products and display and things that they would be doing. So that's not the history of it.
Okay, and the question I had is just the building setback. I know the parking is very limited. Would that be an issue for?
There's adequate parking there as far as number of spaces for that size building. It's definitely at a minimum. Normally, we would not encourage, if it was to be built today, we don't like parking lots to where you have to back out into the road. We want you to be able to pull into the parking lot, maneuver around, and come out forward. It just protects the traffic safety. And the way old businesses would do, I mean, they'd open up the whole front. I mean, so you could drive anywhere. There was no such thing as a curb return or a drive return. You just kind of drove all over the place. DOT normally likes that to be more controlled. And, of course, it's all pre-existing conditions. If there was ever a situation where the building was destroyed by fire or was torn down and they wanted to do something else on the property, then it would have to meet all the current conditions, and DOT and permits and things would have to be dealt with at that time. But given its current status, everything would be grandfathered in unless they needed additional parking, which there's plenty of property in and behind to provide ample space for whatever they really wanted to do. But I mean, it could be accommodated
Okay, so
if they needed to.
I reckon a question technically, is the building placing the improvement in a non-conforming status the way it is now?
It would be a less of a non-conforming status. The front setback in neighborhood business is 25 feet. The side setback is 15 feet from the street side. That it's probably encroaching on the W.A. Harris side already. You can see the right-of-way boundary comes pretty close to the building. The 181 right-of-way is just behind the ditch line, and there, I haven't measured it, but it's probably close to 25 feet. They may actually be in compliance on the front setback. A general business category would require a 40-foot setback from the front and a 20-foot setback from the street side, so it would be more of a nonconformity under that category than it is. Under light industrial, it carries a 50-foot front yard setback and a 25-foot side yard setback. So the higher you go up in category, the further you're supposed to move your building back away from the right-of-ways. This is closer, much closer to being if it was to go to neighborhood business.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Will there be some remodeling done to it and some upgrades to it, what's moving in? And I know that's...
I feel like there would be. I think it's sat vacant for a while. I don't think the building's been used since the little detailing place went out, and that's probably been a couple years ago. So it's not been any occupancy of the building for a while. The folks that I've spoke with and they're in the audience, they might be able to tell you what their plans are for renovation, but any use is better than a vacant use.
Well, I noticed that the chimney is pulled away from the wall, and it looks like it's got some damage to the basement area, the way it's pulled away from the wall, and so I was wondering if that was going to be addressed in whatever this one.
They'll have to go through inspections if they do any major additions or changes. Just to do interior cleanup and renovation, they'd have to make sure, they'd have to have an inspection to get power transferred into names, or any new utilities, or any change of services, any of that kind of stuff. So that'll be the point that everything kind of gets inspected, as long as it's found to be safe by the building inspector. They can generally continue with the building the way it is, and if it has handicap accessibility and those kind of things.
Tate, did you have a question?
I wondered if the road is widened, which is not likely by DOT, but the regional MPO requirement, would that cut into the parking area?
More than likely. If there was a widening, I think the thoroughfare plan calls for it to be a 4-lane section out to Oak Hill, and so that would definitely cut into the property a good bit and change the way the building works.
Topography would be adverse to moving the parking behind the building, even though there's plenty of land there, but not.
It would definitely impact the property, but DOT would have to make arrangements in accommodation with the property owner to compensate for that.
It's a pretty steep drop-off to the back there. If you had parking back, it'd be an uphill.
You're right.
All right, anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to open this up for public comment. And the way we do this, we'll take comments from the members of our audience that are here that would like to speak in favor of this rezoning request. If so, if you could come forward to either one of the podiums and give us your name and your address. ask your question then to is this Mr. Hamer?
Yes. I'd just like to say that, like Mr. Anderson said, the building has been vacant for quite a while. As far as substantial upgrades, no, I don't plan to do any of those. Paint and, general cleanup, fix up, that kind of deal. I'm aware of the chimney situation. I brought it up with the landowner. It was set up for an old oil furnace at the time. It's not been used in years, and it's got electric heat in it now. The chimney will be torn down just for safety's sake.
Okay.
I have, as far as parking goes, like he said, there's adequate parking in the rear. There is an incline, but there's been a driveway cut there before. After you go down the incline, it's fairly flat, and there's a substantial area there to increase parking if need be. Thank you very much.
Could you have your address for our public record? Your home address for your...
2593 Wolf Pit Road.
Okay, and are you presently using the building, sir?
No, sir. I started, I wasn't aware of the city's jurisdiction out there, and thought it was in the county, and was planning on opening soon, and ran into this and didn't realize at the time.
What is it you plan on opening? If I may ask?
A gun store with gunsmithing and accessories, as well as firearm sales.
Okay, I know you've been in discussion with Lee
Yes.
concerning the different zoning classifications. Our question, I think, to you is, would you be comfortable if neighborhood business consideration was given to this rezoning request?
As long as it would accommodate my use, yes, that'd be fine.
And that is pretty much what he talks about as far as hours of operation, things of that nature. Do you
Right.
see
I
that?
plan to run like from 10 in the morning till 6 at night, and I would fall well within the limitations of that.
Okay, any proposed lighting, et cetera?
No, I
as far
don't
as
plan to
concerned?
change anything. It's got some outside street lighting, and other than that, no major changes at all.
And building security, things of that nature?
I have an alarm system in place and that kind of, with cameras and just a burglar alarm. But other than that, no.
All right, any other questions?
Would you be manufacturing any type weapons or anything there?
Technically, no. The ATF at this time recognizes manufacturing as, say, if you brought me a World War II Mauser and you want to make it into a modern sporting firearm, you say you reblued it and put on, for instance, a synthetic stock, or change the bolt so it would accommodate a scope. That's technically called manufacturing, because you've changed the intended use of from a military rifle to a civilian use, and that is a technicality that they do call manufacturing and require a license for that. As far as making a gun from scratch, no.
Thank you.
I do like some of the signs you got next to the door.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One I do have is, if you're in the retail business, what the products that you sell, how are those either tested, or do you have any plans for how that's done?
No, sir. And I don't know if you're, what kind of things you have in mind, but just, for instance, scopes or sights or things of that nature, new stocks or that kind of thing, that it's totally up to the person buying. It's kind of like buying wheels and tires for your car. I mean, as far as testing them, there's not really a whole big need for testing them. You set a scope, or you set it that, as far as that part goes.
Okay. Well, I reckon the reason for my questioning is I did look in our table of permitted uses, and I think shooting ranges fall within the general business category, and those are indoor type ranges. I don't know if you had any.
I had, the owner at this time has the basement occupied, and if he were ever to relinquish the basement, I wouldn't mind putting a small pistol range in the basement, but I don't know if he's ever gonna do that or not.
Understand, and the rules or regulations that falls under what, ATF?
Yes.
I understand. Okay.
Now, neighborhood business
Would not
would
allow that.
not allow that. General business would. So
Okay,
there's-
I'm just trying to make you aware of that also.
Yeah, and that is a possibility that I would consider. And like I said, that the man at the time that owns the business, he's using the basement for storage, and he's not ready at this time to relinquish the basement. If in the future he did, I wouldn't mind doing that. Burke County does not have a pistol range anywhere. Even law enforcement, if they want to go out and use a range at this time if it's inclement weather where they have no place to shoot. I think it'd be a good place to accommodate that kind of thing, to have firearm safety courses and that kind of thing in a smaller confined area. There's no noise in a basement like you would above ground. It'd be a suitable place if the situation ever did come to pass to where I could use it for that.
Okay. I don't know if that would be something that would, a Board of Adjustment item, if it would come to that.
Well, under the way the current ordinance is written, which, we're gonna be re-looking at that hopefully within the next 12 to 18 months. That may change, but we'll re-examine all the table of permitted uses, but currently that would have to come back, if that was something that, if it went to neighborhood business, it would need to be reconsidered for general business under the current category.
Okay. Are you the present property owner?
No, I'm not I'm a leasee.
Oh, okay. And you've held discussions with the present property owner?
Yes.
They're in agreement with you? Okay, fine. Thank you. Anyone else?
Would there be, if he decides in 18 months to go ahead and put a range in the basement, would there be, he would come back here, but would there be certain conditions, inspections that would have to be done, noise elimination and so forth?
Well, if it was under general business category, then they would have to follow whatever standards for ATF to open that range. There are also building code requirements for the type of materials and things that would be allowed in a building of that nature with that type of use. It would not have to go back through board commission approval. If it was neighborhood business, then yeah, it would have to come back to this planning commission and then back up to city council.
For general business.
Here again, I'm not sure that that's even a definite possibility, but I'd like to leave that open if I could. I have no idea if the man ever plans to relinquish or not, but if he did, I would like to.
Okay. And that's something I think we'll have to sit there and discuss with the consideration as to which direction we go, whether we consider general business reclassification or
If
neighborhood.
it came down to a situation to where the general business was going to propose a problem as far as the request going through, here again, I would be glad to not to use that for, if that's what it had to be.
Okay. I think it's point well taken. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this request? Not seeing that. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak against the request? All right. Nobody's jumping forward, so we'll close that for the public comment. Bring it back to the board for discussion and/or a motion. Tate, what are your thoughts?
I think we ought to deny the request and ask the owner to come back and ask for a neighborhood business zoning.
Okay, that's a point taken, as whether or not this request can be modified to go forward as a neighborhood business.
I don't think that's a problem. I mean, the planning commission at this point, it's been properly advertised as general business, neighborhood business. If you chose to go that route, that would be a recommendation. It would be re-advertised at the city council level and under that recommendation. If the owner chose general business rather than neighborhood business, then what it is that the owner or the applicant would have to appeal that decision for them to consider, okay, which one do they want to call a public hearing for? Do they want to call a public hearing for neighborhood business or for general business? City council would have to do that. And they would have to make a decision of which way the public wants to be notified. Your recommendation to neighborhood business can go forward, though, or general business can go forward. Either one can go forward tonight. It doesn't have to come back here unless for some reason you need further research or other additional information related to the case.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we move toward neighborhood business consideration, given that this area is inclusive of residential areas that are immediately across the property and a collector street, and with the stipulation that the owner and lessee understands that if they were to do significant improvements later on, that they would have to come back forward to make a modification to the request.
Okay, I have that in the form of a motion.
Yes.
Is there anyone else that would like to second that?
I'll second that.
All right, I have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is made to recommend pushing forward with the neighborhood business rezoning classification. Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, that motion will go forward and be presented to the city council.
Right, there will be a public hearing called for that at the March 4th city council meeting at 6 p.m. in this council chamber. The applicant has 10 days to appeal that recommendation if they want to, if you would prefer for them to consider the general business category as you had requested, so.
Can I ask a question? Is there a problem?
Could you come forward here for the TV audience, please?
Is there a less likely approval rate for general business than neighborhood?
Well, based on the commission's recommendations, yes, that would be less likely to get approved by the city council than neighborhood business.
I
Yeah,
understand.
that would be my read on it, but.
Then I have no problem with the neighborhood business. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hamer. All right, that concludes our new business. Are there any other items to bring to the commission for discussion, Lee?
Just two
Updates?
two items at the city council retreat. You know, I brought up last time that the city staff was making a recommendation for funding to be appropriated in this year's budget for a new zoning ordinance. So we have asked for professional service capital money to consider that. So we'll see how that fares during the budget season this year. Obviously, there's a lot of requests, and we'll just see how that measures up with everybody else's in the city. And there was also some discussion, if you noticed in the paper, about the extraterritorial jurisdiction and the city's long-term approach to the ETJ and how we work in the ETJ and inspect in the ETJ. We'll talk more about that as we get into the zoning ordinance rewrite, but under the new annexation statutes that were adopted by the General Assembly last year, annexation and that we've typically done in the past 50 years has been significantly changed. It's very difficult anymore for cities to grow outside of its current corporate limits, and the new rules made that even more difficult. And the purpose behind extraterritorial jurisdiction is to plan for future corporate growth, extension of utilities, development outside of that area. The management of the land use goes hand in hand with the annexation. And if there's no opportunities for annexation other than through voluntary annexation, then managing the growth within that area is becoming less and less attractive for cities' jurisdictions. So that's something that's going to have further discussion going forward. We had a lot of discussion about it at the city council level. I think it's something that we need to have some serious conversations at the planning commission level. I'd given a PowerPoint presentation, and I can certainly share some of that information with you of how other cities are handling some of the new general statutes that are coming forward. They've, it's made it very, very difficult for cities to grow. If we are to grow in the future, what they've basically done is we got to grow internally. We got to grow our pie on the inside and not on the outside. which is a real switch for cities, the way North Carolina cities have grown over the past 50 years. So keep that just on the back burner. I'll be bringing more information to you, but just as a first blush, that's one of the things we're talking about.
Cool. Anyone else? All right. Again, we'd like to thank our Troop 899 for attending. Would encourage you to attend the City Council to have a continuance on this discussion we've had here tonight. And at that meeting, they'll give you a test. Thanks again. All right, I'll move that we adjourn.